Wonder Twins issue 12. Mark Russell writing with Stephen Byrne on the art.
Yeah, so I'm the only one that. Yep, last issue. And I will say it. Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Nice. It sticks the landing. I feel like knowing what we know about this, that it got extended another 6 issues. And we kind of only had one bad issue where it was that fill-in that was at issue 7.
Where it wasn't Byrne on art, and it was clearly just shit, quick, give us time, scramble for something.
Yep. So the story that's been told through this one is basically the redemption of the Maths, of Polymath and her dad, and basically how the Wonder Twins believe in humanity almost more than the Justice League, right? They're almost outside of it.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Justice League's got a bit cynical. It's got a bit just like, oh, this is what we do. There's procedures for everything, and kind of
Zan and Jane are. Yeah, Zan and Jane are like, well, no, that's not why we came here. That's not why we intern. We actually want to make the world a better place, and you can tell it's definitely Mark Russell looking at a younger generation, going, "Hey, don't forget why we do this, right? It's the people. It's not just because hey, it's our jobs. It's people need our help, and it's not just." The superhero stuff. It's not just saving the city. It's, Philo and Polly were both put in predicaments that they were in because of who they were, not because of what they did. And by the Wonder Twins reaching out to them and making things better, they've made the world better after that. Because if not for Philo, the Colonel would have plunged the world back into the 80s, and nobody wants that.
No.
But yeah, so as it gets going, the Wonder Twins are hiding the Maths at their apartment, which will come into play later.
Wonderful payoff joke.
Yeah, and so they're just trying to go about their way, but they do feel that cynicism from the Justice League. Is we did all of this, but why? Polly and Philo are still in trouble. Like we haven't actually solved anything. But maybe the Hall of Justice, if we ask the Justice League to help us out, and they kind of try to read them the riot act, the Justice League. And Zan and Jana fight back at them. And so Superman's like, which he then used, Superman gets mad that they stole a spaceship.
And they're like, well, from Lex Luthor. And then like,
you used to free Philo Math, a known associate, and the creator of the Colonel. The artificial intelligence almost set theirs back to the 80s. And then Zan's like, yeah, he also saved it. If not for him, we'd all be working at Hickory Farms. And I'm just like, what the hell, Zan?
What does he think the 80s was?
Right, exactly. And then Jaina kind of goes off.
Yeah. Before you had all the matching stationery, there was a time you did something just because it was the right thing to do.
Right, but now you sit here in a knitting circle arguing about the rules. We'll all go fix the planet.
And then you just have Hawkman going, I like knitting.
I do like knitting. I thought that was great. But then John also, sticks in, he's like, oh, they're bored. It's like, no, we're not bored. And in the current political climate that I'm seeing online, there's a lot of this kind of talk down from the older generation to a younger generation. And kind of being part of that older generation, it's like, well, no, don't discount the younger generation.
It fascinates me the way that the current older generation looks at like if you go back like just go back to like the 80s, because that's what we're talking about. You had punk as a movement, which is born out of the youth mentality of wanting to change things and break the system, and then they don't mean any of that stuff is what you get now from the same people.
But yeah, so all those people that wanted to burn everything down because they were punk eventually sold out and bought in, right? Bought a suit, went to work, and now they're part of that system that they were trying to burn down.
Yeah, and that's what they accuse the Justice League of doing here, essentially.
Right. It's like, yeah, y'all sold out. You're not trying to save people. You're just trying to be superheroes, which in a superhero book is a bold proclamation.
Yeah, and you could take this if you really wanted it. Oh, they're digging at Superman, but it's more just the Justice League of the establishment.
It's general.
Using them. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they're the establishment, right?
Yeah.
And she goes, yeah, we broke some worlds, and in doing so, we saved the world. And Superman's like, that's not your job, though. She's like, you're right, it's yours.
But you're not doing it, so we gotta have to.
Right, and I love that. So Lex Luthor gets on to the cell phone. I forget her name. Cell phone Annie or whatever it is.
Yeah, the phone lady.
Yeah, and that basically the video of Zan just going through her purse and taking the cell phone, and that they want it back. So he puts together a league for her, and you have the ringmaster, who basically just has a circus gimmick,
But
and
instead of a whip, he just has rings that bind
rings,
around people.
right? And then they also have the supervisor from the call center at the prison.
Yep.
And you see Scrambler back there, trying to, correct this plugin problem. And he's like, well, what does she bring to it? He's like, well, she's middle management. She knows how to manage people. It's like her job. So they send them after the Wonder Twins, and they actually defeat them. The Ringmaster hits them with rings, so they can't, activate their Wonder Twin powers. Except Gleek's in Zan's backpack,
He comes out to help.
and he comes out to help because they're gonna throw them into a river, old style.
Yeah, basically they just stop them before they can activate their powers, so they're screwed.
Right. And so Gleek sees that the Ringmaster is the same one that horribly abused him, and he goes, lack of a better term, ape shit, and takes out Ringmaster until the cell phone lady hits him, which this is the most troubling thing in the issue. Poor Gleek getting tased.
Yeah, little stun gun in the back.
Right. So all hope is all lost when the middle management lady frees them, and you come to find out that no, Scrambler jumped into her. He's kind of learned from his thing that he wanted to change the Earth, right? That was his whole gimmick.
Yeah.
Of wanting to swap people around so they know what it's like to be each other and have this little sense of empathy. So they end up teaming up and taking the cell phone lady out. And then he jumps into, from the Ringmaster, and they trap the other two into the phone, into the body. And yeah, so we find out that he escaped using that plugin, swapped with the middle management, came to save them, and that, his parting words to them is, be careful what boxes you let people put you in, because once inside, you'll never get out again.
Yeah.
So they go back to the Justice League, and the Justice League.
And they're like, oh no, you found them, because they've got the maths there. And then Batman just goes, how did the world's greatest detective figure out that you have that your best friend was hiding you in your apartment? Is that really your question?
Yeah. So that's so good. So they end up, basically redeeming the maths and the Wonder Twins by creating that they're going to put some of the Justice League, funds to work and create this building called Asterisk, which looks like an asterisk, which is pretty cool.
Assessing strategic threats requiring innovative skills and knowledge.
Right. And so and they're gonna have the maths run it, and the Wonder Twins.
Yeah.
So, and then we see basically a recap of the whole series about, you get the smelly guy back and how, that never really sat well with Jaina, and the maths and reconnecting them.
Yeah, you got a little panel of the middle management inside the Scrambler's body. We're like, you don't understand. I'm not the Scrambler. I work here. Shut up and eat your Luther paste.
Eat your Luther paste. Yeah, and then a year later, they're in the new headquarters for Asterisk in. I'm trying to see what here. Oh, if they ever resent being stuck on Earth, because remember they were sent here kind of against their will. And he goes, no way, because as long as I have you guys, I'm never gonna be alone. You guys are stuck with me. And then it ends, and it's kind of like, this is what the Wonder Comics has done so well, are these younger hero stories, and about these are the future. And
yeah, Russell's really pulled it off here.
Yeah, and I can't believe he stuck the landing twice now, because the end of that first arc, it wound things up really well. You had the whole thing with the Scrambler, and then outside of issue 7, so then the rest of them, he did it again. This is 2 Wonder Twin stories now that I can add to stuff that I loved.
I think what makes this extra impressive is obviously he didn't know they were getting a second arc, because otherwise we wouldn't have had that fill in issue 7.
Right.
And you can tell, but it feels so cohesive, bringing back in things like the Scrambler. And that was kind of just a part of the first arc. It was a relatively small part by the end. It was a villain, but not a huge thing. And then here making that kind of an integral part of the point of what the book is.
Yep.
And it really makes it feel like one big story as well as two small ones.
Yeah, and there's this seed of redemption and about not writing people off just because.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the Wonder Twins, and they're always kind of a bit of a joke, the whole form of water. But, here they end up actually making a difference. Just by being themselves. And there's still not Axe Cop. What's the Gun Cop?
Gun Cop. Yeah.
There's another appearance by Gun Cop, so it never takes itself too seriously while imparting a serious message, which is what I love about Mark Russell, and I'd love to see him on a mainline book.
Yeah, and it's not really clunky with its message, because it makes sense for these characters to be having these opinions, and it doesn't just it's not like, hey, look at this is what we're doing. It just does it in the story in a really natural way.
Yep. So I'm rating this. I'm gonna give this an 8.5.
Yep, same from me.
Oh, look at that.